everyone.
Alex, before you go, where are we with the, okay, here, is this where the walk-on she has you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hi, I need a motion to return to public session. Tammy, second. Bruce, all in favor? Thank you. We will now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Alex, before you start, I just want to apologize to the community for having to wait so long. I kept the board overtime in exec session, just with lots of personnel-related items. At this time of year, it gets a little bit overwhelming in terms of all the changes that we're making. So again, my apologies, but I'm so happy that you're all here this evening.
Great. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. This has certainly been a busy summer. This is the 9th time the board has met this summer, and I'd like to just take a moment to recognize that and thank my fellow board members for their time and for their service to the community. I would also like to thank Jill Garash, along with Christine Costa, Mona Hecht, and Jen Lagatuda, who have been working hard this summer along with their teams to get the school year off to a good start. We are so pleased that by working together, we were able to come up with a plan to examine and to reduce class sizes in the elementary school as well as in the junior and senior high school. I know that Mona Hecht and Jason Huntsman have been interviewing great candidates, and we have some new appointments on the agenda tonight. I want to take a moment to also thank the community for their feedback throughout the summer. We appreciate hearing from you. So thank you again, and please keep communicating with us. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention the buildings and grounds team, security, and the clericals who've been working throughout the summer months. I know that our superintendent had a chance to specially thank the clerical team this week by making them an egg breakfast that she cooked for them herself.
Yeah, and our custodial team, they were all there.
Yes.
Christine did a little special shout out. They helped clean up our kitchen here and do a little refurbishing, so she gave out some crowns.
I didn't hear about the crowns. That sounds fun. Thank you also to Christine Cosime, John Barnes, Valerie Massimo, Dan Dambeski, our building principals, and to Joe Monastero, and to Kristen Raska, who do so much. Preseason sports are in full swing, and the new weight room was open and staffed all summer. Thank you, Mr. Bongino and coaches. Here we are in what is often called the Sunday of summer. On Monday, new teachers will be in for orientation, and on Wednesday, the faculty and staff will be welcomed back at Superintendent's Conference Day. The appreciation we have for the principals, the faculty, and the staff of this school district cannot be summed up in one brief president's welcome, and there are too many people to name tonight. I'm so afraid I left somebody out, so if I did, send me an email. We know how much work goes into getting everything ready so that when our children return with sharpened pencils, charged Chromebooks, and eager minds, they are set up for a successful year. So thank you, everyone. And over to you.
Was that a little shout out that kept the Chromebooks charged?
It was a reminder to myself.
Just a little push there. So welcome, everybody, this evening, community members, administrators. We have a lot of new teachers here. I'm so thrilled that you could join us this evening. We are just a few weeks away, not even at this point, for an exciting year ahead. And as Mrs. Whalahan mentioned, it has been a very busy summer. We are happy to report that the majority of our teaching positions have been filled, and we are hopeful to complete this process in the coming days. With that said, we have a number of TA and aide positions available. Should you know anyone interested, could you please have them reach out to Mrs. Hecht? Again, these are aide and teacher assistant positions. These are very important positions within our community to service some of our special needs students, provide support in the buildings, and for some of our AIS needs. So again, if you have some names of people, we're taking names. I just do want to provide a quick transportation update. We are almost to the finish line in our routing for the school year ahead. Bus numbers are expected, and pickup and drop-off times will be posted in the portal to families Friday at noon. Our elementary teacher assignments will be posted tomorrow at 3:00 p.m. We have some appointments this evening, so we got to get the names approved first before they can go in the portal. But we expect many happy children when they see who their teachers are tomorrow. I'm sure, like, it's overwhelming, 3:00, hit the button, right,
Can't
to see
wait.
who our teachers are. As previously reported at the end of the budget process, we anticipating being able to provide some buses to some of our rough terrain routes. But unfortunately, our transportation contract with Huntington Coach, which was taken over by Beacon Mobility, will no longer permit the changes that we had requested originally. So our transportation supervisor had reached out to Huntington Coach to say, we want to make some adjustments to some of our routes. They were in agreement, but while that person was working with us, their higher-ups were in an agreement to have the company bought out. So they could no longer agree to those changes. So we just want to be, fully transparent here that those adjustments are not going to be possible. With that said, for the 2024-2025 school year, we anticipate soliciting proposals for transportation services that could include those alternate routes. So again, we'll try to do our best to work with families, but we know that this was an important discussion with our community throughout last year and leading up to the budget process, and we were so excited that we could make some adjustments, but it's not possible at this time. I also want to sadly report that Mrs. Jean Luna, our transportation supervisor, is retiring on September 22nd. Mrs. Luna, as you know, has received our community award this year, and so we are devastated for the district, but happy for her that she's moving to Georgia and going to enjoy her retirement. But she has been just an incredible asset to the district. I know we are going to miss her, but families and principals, I know, are going to miss her even more. Mrs. Cosme says, "Oh my gosh, she's leaving us. She cares so deeply about the kids and making sure they're arriving safely each and every day." But we are in the process of working on a transition plan, and we'll be able to report out more on this topic at our September 12th Board of Education meeting. But we don't have a whole lot of time left. So but she's working feverishly to make sure those routes are ready on Friday. Superintendent's conference days are on August 30th and 31st. We look forward to welcoming back our staff after a wonderful summer break, or hopefully a wonderful summer break for them. Again, we want to thank our staff who worked around the clock to get our buildings open and ready for this school year. So much occurs in the summertime. I think people think, oh, you're on vacation, but really it is a buzz. And I want to thank Mr. Clements. I think he's in the audience tonight.
I left him out. I'm looking
Thank
at
you.
him,
Okay,
looking
so
at
there
him.
we
As
go.
I
We
said,
caught
if I
him.
left you
But
out, sorry,
Mr.
Anthony.
Clements and his teams really have been working to, make sure the buildings are beyond sparkling when we get back. And even more importantly, we're going to be able to open our STEAM wing at the junior-senior high school. Our team, who has been doing all the installation for that, have been working weekends and evenings. And we are, right, Mr. Clements, we're going to make it, and we're going to make it to the finish line next Wednesday. So they say they have till August 31st. We're saying our teachers are coming back August 30th, so we need them to get their supplies and things moved in. But it's really going to be exciting, and we'd like to have a grand opening of the new STEAM wing. So this was part of our bond project. So we'll talk about that and, get some dates for September once everything's moved in. And, as Mrs. Wheelahan, you said, I just want to thank our principals, our directors and chair people, our entire administrative team for ensuring a smooth start. I mean, so much goes into class schedules and the planning, and we really, I'm sorry, I'm chewing on my hair. We've, hired new teachers, in the beginning of August and, up until literally down to the minute. So again, a lot goes into making those schedules and making those adjustments, getting the buildings ready. So again, team, thank you so much. You're here tonight. You ready? Look at it. Go CSH. All right, coming down to the wire. So let's see what else. As you are aware, in the past 2 months, the district settled 2 Child Victim Act lawsuits. At our August 7th Board of Education meeting, I provided a detailed statement which was posted on our website for the community to view. It is important to note within the settlements are confidentiality agreements that cannot be violated and limit the district from saying anything more than what has already been shared. As mentioned, we will be having a community meeting to share the district's plans for payment. A postcard is going to be mailed out to community members, notifying them of this date, which we have scheduled for September 18th. We encourage your attendance at this meeting, and again, we want to thank you in advance for your patience and understanding. Tonight, we have several presentations on the agenda, which include programs that will greatly benefit our students. So I just want to say a few things about the work that's gone around for these projects. The mental health enhancements are going to help the district close some gaps since the start of some of these mandates in 2018. I really want to commend Dr. Smith, who is no longer with us, but Mrs. Raska, Mr. Bongino, Mrs. Hecht, and Mrs. Lagatuda, and a team of teachers, parents, counselors, and administrators for their efforts to identify areas in need of improvement and many areas of strength. There were so many thoughtful discussions that took place last year around this topic, and looking forward to see how we can meet these requirements, but more importantly, not to meet just the requirements, but really to service our kids in the best way possible. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of this work. The plan that will be shared tonight truly demonstrates the collaborative approach that makes our district stand out. As well, during our safety discussion in the spring, we shared our goals to have an anonymous reporting system in place for the spring of 2024, partnering with the Sandy Hook Promise Organization. At that time, Sandy Hook Promise Organization couldn't commit to a very specific date. We were on a wait list, but fortunately, we were able to start earlier than expected. So Mrs. Lagatuda will share the components of this offering and how it connects with our goals of building relationships with students and especially the trusted adults in our buildings. So those are the presentations for tonight. We also have the last public hearing on our security plan that needs to take place this evening that Mr. Clements is going to share as well. So again, I want to welcome everybody back. I mean, I try to save that for another 2 weeks, but for all of you who are here tonight, thanks so much. You ready to rock and roll? Let's go.
Great.
All right.
All right. We're now going to continue with our first audience to visitors. The Cold Spring Harbor Board of Education and Administration welcome your attendance at board. Oh, we're doing the two presentations first. Thanks. I'll stop reading then. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to take over for just 2 seconds. So the first presentation is the Second Step Mental Health Curricular Program, and Mrs. Lagatuda and Mr. Bongino are going to present this evening. And you're probably saying, why that team? But Mr. Bongino and the phys ed teachers have been such an integral part of really trying to incorporate this program, Second Step, which is on the agenda for approval this evening, to really meet the needs of our mental health, for the mental health needs of our kids. Pretty neat. Like, we tried to figure out how can we provide these lessons and just these different components of the program without pulling kids out of a lot of instructional time. And as usual, Mr. Bongino contributed greatly to this conversation and had some very creative ways that we could offer this program and really enhance some of the instruction that's currently in place. So again, thank you, Jen and Mike, for your presentation tonight.
Thanks for the opportunity. So just to backtrack a little bit, Jill mentioned about the mandates that have been in place since 2018. And we're in a good position. We have been, because we've been covering a lot of those mandates. So in 2018, a mental health framework was instated by New York State Education Department, which contains an extensive list of learning standards that need to exist within your curriculum. So that was in 2018. I just want to be clear that, although we were covering a lot of that, they were very clear that you have to provide direct instruction with respect to mental health. So for example, we do run many activities across our schools that promote mental health. So for example, we might have a kindness week. We have several activities, Unity Day. And those types of activities, of course, support our mental health initiatives, but they don't serve as direct instruction for our students. So this is above and beyond any activities you would be doing in your schools. Okay, and health education now must contain mental health education as well. So in terms of we talked about why we're here at this point, now recommending a program. As Jill mentioned, we have identified some gaps that Mike is also going to speak to. And just, again, I want to thank Tina Smith and Mike, who have been instrumental in leading the committee in this work. New York State has basically 3 pillars surrounding the mental health education instruction: self-management, relationships, and resource management. Again, it's self-care for our students, resiliency, feelings, and communication. That takes up the first pillar. Relationships, which deal with communication, empathy, compassion, acceptance, gratitude, and forgiveness. And another important pillar is resource management, making sure that our students know what, when, and how to seek help for themselves and for other students. In terms of our mental health education review process, there were 2 meetings with this committee with respect to achieving these gaps, filling the gaps. The first meeting took a deep dive in terms of the learning standards within that framework and compared those standards to what we're already offering here in Cold Spring Harbor. We have our SEL lessons, we have the Great Body Shop, for example, at the elementary level, we have our health classes at 7th grade and 10th grade. So again, we were covering much of that. But again, the committee had to figure out where were we falling short in terms of meeting those standards. So that occupied the first meeting. And Mike's going to go more into detail on that. The second meeting was devoted to, okay, now that we've identified the gaps, what would be the best program for us to capture those particular areas where we were falling short. And so we're going to talk to you tonight about 3 programs that were reviewed by the committee, and then which one we are recommending and why we're recommending that program.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to talk about this extremely important topic. And one thing that to understand is that mental health is it's ongoing, it's evolving, it's every day that has to be addressed with our students. And what we did when we met as a group was we wanted to see 3 programs that we could use to embed within what already we are doing and what would be best to align with the standards, what would meet our kids' needs, and how we then can implement it. And that was where the physical education program came into play, because physical education teachers, it is part of the actual phys ed curriculum in a way, because it's not just about that traditional, like, okay, we're gonna play sports. It's really about sportsmanship, getting along, working together. That's where the cooperative games all came into play. And the other thing is that physical education teachers, especially at the junior, senior high school level, see every single student in the school. So that was something that I felt that very strongly when we were all discussing it, that they were part of this program. So one of the things that we first came about in our first meeting, just so you can understand how we went through it, was we really truly needed a common language amongst the teachers, everyone within the building, whether it's a nurse, a custodian, everyone should be talking the same language. We also wanted to expand upon our previous years and things that we have done. The Tier 1 mental health education at the secondary level. Mentioned before, grade 7 and grade 10 get health education. It is mandated by the state, and it's taught by a certified health educator. After that, it's not mandated by the state. But should that mean that our children don't get health education or mental health education? Think about it. Once you get to the upper grade levels and you're worrying about exams and colleges, and we all know the stressors our kids have. So really embedding this into their program is very important. And then we wanted to make sure that we had the right people teaching. So as much as a phys ed staff and a health educator is, qualified, we also wanted to collaboratively work together with our mental health staff. So our lessons would be co-taught. Oops. How fast did I go?
I think we're both doing it at the same
Oh, go. Sorry. Fair enough. That would make sense. Okay. So what we did, and again with Tina Smith, we brought in 3 programs. So this was not just, let's just take one that was recommended. So everyday speech, second step, rethink ed mental health. That binder that is like behind me is what all 3 programs looked like. And we met with a group of people, the teachers, mental health staff, myself, and we really dissected all of these programs to what would serve best. And one of the things that I felt very strongly about was that we at Cold Spring Harbor, in conjunction with the Great Body Shop, we have really touched a lot of these things already. But we need to expand on it, and how accessible the lessons are, how easy they would be for a classroom teacher to also teach the lesson with a mental health staff. And that's where we found, as we continued on, here were some of our findings. We compared everyday speech to rethink ed mental health. And I don't have to read each thing, I know that you can, but all programs were very good. They were very good, but they didn't lean towards what we needed to best serve our students. And we really wanted to make sure that came out in second step, which is I'm going to talk most about, which is what we're really presenting to you tonight to hopefully adopt is what we would use to teach our students about mental health in K through 8, and then I'll explain that as well. So the second step findings was K through 8, it is clear, it is developed, the lessons, the program, the website, how the teachers get the lessons, the activities, the interactions are easily accessible. They're all aligned with the state standards, as well as SEL. The continuity is already in line with our scope and sequence with the Great Body Shop. It's inclusive with videos, obviously the lessons which I mentioned, extensive activities to help our students apply the new skills. The website is easily accessible, even for the parents to see what is that's going on. And there is also a homeschool component or even home instruction if a student is not in our buildings, which we also thought was extremely important. It was a unanimous vote amongst all of us that this was a recommended curriculum. What we have done since that was there has been curriculum writing that has taken place over the summer. Mental health staff, the health, PE. We selected New York State mental health frameworks and topics, the scope and sequence. We're developing our schedule of lessons currently. Also, what's going to take place now as we enter into the fall is I am currently cross-referencing the Great Body Shop with second step to see what the overlaps are, where there's an extensive expansion to it, what is appropriate for our students, how this would look, and this will be discussed in our faculty meetings and conference day. Everyone has been very generous to give me a lot of time to oversee this. Not only will I be overseeing my current PE and health staff, I will be supporting and overseeing the elementary teachers that necessarily normally might not come under my natural domain, but because they're going to be teaching health education in the Great Body Shop, and now this co-taught, I'm going to oversee that and work collaboratively with the principals to make sure I have ample enough time to sit with them and make sure that they're comfortable teaching these lessons to our students.
I just want to add to that, Mike and I have been chatting about this for quite a bit. Grade 7 is very easy to integrate because we have already health taking place in grade 7. Those lessons will still be co-taught with the mental health staff member. And then just to backtrack a moment for the summer curriculum writing, just to clarify that summer curriculum writing needed to take place regardless of what program is being adopted, because once we realized what the gaps were, we then had to identify what were the lessons that we would need to add into our curriculum, and at what points during the year would they appropriately integrate with our current curriculum. So I just wanted to make that point clear.
And also, I do want to echo that this is ongoing review. So there is nothing set in stone. Specifically, the 8th grade is a little bit more challenging due to they don't have health education. So we have been looking at how to develop the lessons within the physical education curriculum, where I can just give a brief example. As units go in phys ed, there's always a break in units. And before we get into unit 2, we might take a week and implement these mental health lessons. We teach I talked about this today, we teach an extensive CPR unit here that is above the New York State standards. There could be a way to embed some of the lessons in here. But either way, it's going to be co-taught within the physical education classes. The appropriate lessons, which are 10, will be taught throughout the school year continuously. And that's also was important to us, not to throw all of the lessons in at one time. They have to be continuous, so it's not, so to speak, in one ear and out the other. We want them to make sure it's remembered and it keeps being reinforced. So the actual logistics is still in the work in progress. Glad to discuss it in further time, but this curriculum aligns perfectly with the state. Phys ed staff is on board and ready to help teach these classes. It is currently K through 8, and as you saw on the previous slide, second step is in the process of developing the 9 through 12 lessons and being released soon, but we don't have it currently at this point. With that being said, our 10th grade students do get their mental health components all through their health education within the current curriculum that we teach now. Any questions? Sure.
Pardon me. So what do you think is the timing for 11th and 12th to have something? Because as you mentioned at the beginning, right, Mr. Mongino, that's a tough time for kids. So,
I agree.
So what do you think in terms of timing?
I'm hoping it is sometime this year that we see it from the actual curriculum.
Got it.
With that being said, we can have continued conversations along with the building administration on how we can provide 11th and 12th graders that appropriate mental health education.
And we would be prepared to pivot. So, should you approve this program this evening, and this is the one that we're moving forward with, if they do release the 9 through 12 relatively soon, again, we'll be prepared to pivot, that we can include some mental health instruction. Again, not that it's not taking place and it's not happening at all in 11th grade. It's woven throughout in some cases, but in terms of that direct instruction that I talked about earlier, we would pivot to that as soon as we could.
I think it's important for our phys ed teachers, and because this is unique, in the past, we haven't had the mental health professionals and the PE teachers ever work in the same classroom, I'm going to call it, and together. So because they have all been involved in creating this opportunity, I think it's a really nice opportunity, and I just see it very easily being transitioned to 11th and 12th grade once they, kind of get their feet on the ground and start doing this more regularly.
And I just hope that it carries over to the classroom teachers, the arts, the athletics. It all needs to be one language. Everybody needs to understand it. And I just think that once everyone gets the lessons and gets the importance of it, it should be a culture that carries on. And we're looking to start here, and we do feel very strongly that this is the appropriate program.
Yeah, and I like that you started with that whole concept of the common language. And it's really great to know that you considered 3 different options, and this committee decided to go with this one. That's very helpful to hear, and appreciate all the work on that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other
Anything?
questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
you.
very much.
Thank you.
And I'm going to ask Mrs. Lagatuda at this point to give us a jump start with the Sandy Hook Promise Anonymous Reporting System. Again, we spoke about this a little bit at our district-wide safety meeting, and we're thrilled that we were moved up on the list. I just want to reiterate that while it is an anonymous reporting system, and the premise around this is to build a community and culture where our students feel accepted and included, and also have that trusted adult where they can go to. We've spoken about training for students and staff. At the same time, maybe a child doesn't feel necessarily comfortable speaking to someone, or they want to report something. So this is another outlet for them to be able to use this resource. But I want to be very clear that when, and Jen will go into the details in terms of the system on the other side and how it gets reported back to the school. But should anything be reported, it will come back to us, and we will do a typical investigation. So whether it's on bullying or sexual harassment of any kind, again, we would do a thorough investigation as we always would. A little bit more difficult if a child's name's not being released, obviously, but we need to be, checking in on certain things.
Is it time for questions yet?
Um,
But not yet. Why don't we
Go
wait
ahead,
till
go-
the? oh,
sure. But we'll have
I
Ms.
can wait
Luggs,
till the
maybe
end,
she'll
Jen.
answer them
Okay.
before you get there.
Okay, I also just want to recognize Mr. Dambusky and Mr. Monastero. We have been on calls with Sandy Hook Promise throughout the summer. This is even prior to our we basically have a pre-onboarding process to our onboarding process. So I want to thank the 2 of them for being on those calls as well and being involved in possible rollout. All right, so just in terms of Sandy Hook Promise, as Jill talked about, they have a mission, as you can see, and their mission is to end school shootings and create a culture change that prevents violence and other harmful acts that hurt children. The Say Something Anonymous Reporting System, although it is an anonymous reporting system, really what's important to them is the education involved. So they partner with school districts to provide training and resources, and this is not something that you would get with other anonymous reporting systems. In fact, they would prefer that students were not using the anonymous reporting system, but instead, we're strengthening our relationships with the adults in the schools, and that the students would first seek to go to a trusted adult, as opposed to using the anonymous reporting system. So that's really the premise of their program here. And you can see, well, we know that I mentioned that it's free. So with it, though, comes a commitment, which I will go into a little bit more detail that I've mentioned in the past. But again, the 3 basic ideas here in utilizing this program, we want to ensure that staff, students, parents recognize the warning signs and threats, that they're acting immediately, and this system allows that to happen. And then, again, saying something to a trusted adult, and as a last resort, using that anonymous reporting system. So we're going to talk about, how this basically works, and I'll go into further details. But another thing that separates Sandy Hook Promise, the Say Something Anonymous Reporting System, from other reporting systems is that there are 3 ways for a tipster to report something. They can either use a mobile app, they can go through a website, or there's a hotline. And the information that you see there doesn't change, even with the adoption. That's the information. When someone does call or go to the website to engage in this in the TIP, they do have to associate themselves with a school district. So that's part of the onboarding process where a portal would be created for Cold Spring Harbor. You would have to state which school district you're associated with as the tipster. So I keep saying tipster, that would be the person reporting the tip. That could be a student, that could be a parent, that could be a staff member. Okay, so anyone within our school community could submit the tip. From there, the tip goes to a crisis center, which I'm going to get into more detail. That's another thing that separates this particular program with others, that rather than the anonymous call going to someone and then it gets reported basically to the schools, there's a middle step here where it goes to a crisis center with trained counselors, and they are basically triaging to determine what's happening here. What is the situation? Is it life-threatening? Is it non-life-threatening? If it is life-threatening, they're calling 911 and informing schools. So I just want to make that clear that that's happening. And then step 3 is the tip to be managed. So after the tip is received by the crisis center and triaged and determined what level it is, it's sent to the schools, and there are 2 levels of teams. There's a school team, and then there's a district level team. We'll talk about that too. And then once we get the information, we proceed from there. Perhaps, as Jill said, there's an investigation that needs to take place because an accusation was claimed in this system. This particular slide was added if you open the presentation Friday. This is an additional slide that's not in the presentation. I thought it would be helpful for people to see what it would look like. This is the mobile app appearance of when you get on there and what it looks like. Just to give you a sense of, it is anonymous, but you still have to provide information, and the counselors at the crisis center will do their best to ask questions so that they can get as many details as possible about the tip that you're reporting. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a view, so you'd have to report what is happening here. Is it violent in nature? Does it have to do with vaping? Does it have to do with bullying? You do have to choose a category. And then you'll see to the right where you're providing a description of what the tip is. And then some questions, who is it, when is it? They did report that, sometimes someone may give the tip, they call it a tip and dip. They put the tip in and they dip out, as opposed to staying on to communicate with the counselor, whether the communication is electronic through a keyboard, their phone, or they're on the phone with someone. All right, so in terms of the crisis center, so again, they're the ones who are first acknowledging that tip receipt. They're getting all the details that they, of course, will share with the teams that I mentioned before. They will be the ones to engage in the anonymous chat with the tipster to gather more information. And again, as I said, they're going to categorize as life safety or non-life safety. So you'll see to the right what the top tips typically are, not to say those are the only ones. So vaping, for example, I mentioned, anxiety, depression, bullying, suicide threat. And then you have below what constitutes being a life safety criteria, just so that we're all clear. So a threat of substantial bodily harm, it could be harm to themselves, it could be harm that they're stating is going to happen to someone else. The National Crisis Center, as they're called, I've been referring to them as the Crisis Center, but they are national. The other great thing about this system is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and that doesn't happen with every program. They are trained professionals on the other end of that line. They're trained in suicide prevention, crisis management, and mental health support. They do speak many languages, as you can see here on the slide. They know up to over 600 languages. Okay, so you're getting a professional staff on the other end receiving these tips. So we talked about the district teams, which we are still in the process of formulating. As Jill mentioned, we we were planning on this happening in January because we were on a waiting list, and all of a sudden they can take us in the fall. So we've been rushing a little bit to put some of this together before our actual onboarding starts. So they are currently waiting for us on the district support team, the school teams, which we are gathering that information. And you want to ensure that your SROs are part of these teams, of course, your mental health staff, your building leaders, they would all be part of the team. And then again, who would be your first responders in the school district? I mentioned before that this is a free program, but again, with free, there is a commitment, right? So again, they have a mission. They believe in educating people. They believe in creating awareness. They believe in strengthening relationships with your adults in the buildings, that you can go out to find a trusted adult. So they operate under the 4E model: educating students, empowering students, engaging the community, and encouraging hope. So this is called the Save Promise Club. So this is the little strings attached, if you will, that, it's free, but with that, we have basically committed to having a Save Promise Club. Students Against Violence Everywhere is what those letters stand for. And you can either have it as a standalone club, or it can be incorporated into an existing club that you have. We decided that we would incorporate this into our SAD club, Students Against Destructive Decision. We felt that that was a natural place to put it. So I just wanted you to be aware that we're already signed up for that. We've filled out our forms, and that one is ready to go. What are we committed to with that club? So we are required to meet at least one time a month. So it's 1 to 2 times per month. And student-led activities have to take place in the building. One, maybe your first year, but up to 4. They would really like 3 to 4 activities where the students are leading an awareness experience in the school. So let's think about 4 times a year. Maybe it's a kindness week. So I'm going to give you some examples that they suggested as well. Maybe it's I say something because, and then they fill in the blank, and then those are being posted around the school. Maybe you have a say something week. Maybe you have a trusted adult Thursday, for example. A mix it up day. So there are so many suggestions in their resources toolkit in terms of the activities. All right, so that is what comes along with the Save Promise Club. The Sandy Hook, as I said, supports the implementation. They are with us every step of the way. It's extensive training. Talk about training. It is a 12-week onboarding process. So although they said we're slated for the fall, that's when our training begins. We're training administrators. We're training our adults. That means we're training our staff and our parents. And we're training the students. Once the student training starts is when the system goes live, because once they're trained, we want them to have access to the system. We are aiming to get this in place prior to the Christmas break. We understand that, some feel particularly vulnerable during some of the holiday seasons. So we're going to try to get this up and running early in December. If we can try for earlier, we will, but that is when we're slated to go live. But again, this is just an example of what they do. They have supplied us with the awareness materials and resources and plenty of videos that we can watch. In fact, I have a Q&A document. I'll be sharing a lot of information with you. If you have any questions later, I'll try to answer them as well. All right, so I mentioned the 12-week onboarding process, which entails a kickoff meeting, a portal setup meeting, which I know Joe is looking forward to that one, a school level teams creation. Although we have to give them a sense of our teams, we still have to create those in the portal, and they have to make sure that all of this information is going to the right people. As I said, admin training, adult user training, and that would be for staff and parents. And then, as I said, the go live date, once the students start getting their training, we're going to be live. All right, so that is, I tried to go quickly. That is, in a nutshell, some information about the Sandy Hook Promise. Does anybody have any questions? I know,
Thank
Alex.
Well, yes, thank you so much, Jen. And obviously, student safety is really the most important thing. So thank you for your care and the time you spent on this. I'm glad to hear, too, that you said trusted adults first, right? I had a couple questions. One was initially you said if a child's anonymous, it makes it hard for the school to know then who it is. So how is that handled?
So the tipster is anonymous, and they may not be afraid, though, to share who they're concerned about. So let's say that they find out that someone's going to harm
Yeah.
themselves. So that would be information that they're reporting to the crisis center, but they themselves don't want to be identified as the person.
But they typically give the name of the child they're concerned
From
about.
what, and
Okay.
again, we've been in communication with Mindy Lobb, yes, oftentimes they do. And don't forget, these are trained professionals. They're going to try to frame
Right.
questions to extract that type of information. But that's an excellent question.
And was there data on how many tips schools tend to get? Does it spike in the beginning? Do they have an incident of pranks or what
Yes.
have you as students learn and grow through the process? Yeah.
You are so right there, Alex. So yes, they did say that when the portal opens, when we go live, there tends to be a lot of activity in the beginning. And yes, unfortunately, there are pranks involved, but they see that almost every single time, but it does level off. I would say on average, you'd be surprised, but maybe 20 tips a year. You know, once they get into a groove, it's not in the hundreds. It's, you know,
Right,
it's
that's what I was hoping.
relatively
like,
low
okay.
number once people understand the system and, you know, they realize that these pranks are not getting them anywhere.
And did they see a decrease in then incidents in their schools
Yes.
also? So,
Absolutely. And in fact, I can share with all of you, there was some research and a study done. They tried to grab several schools who had been using Sandy Hook Promise, this particular reporting system, and what were the results, you know, by the end compared to students who were not using this system. So yes, they did. They saw an increase in their level of community with one another, acceptance, tolerance. In terms of the trusted adult piece, I'm not quite sure how that translated, but again, about 20 tips a year, you know, you'd hope that there's been an increase in students going to a trusted adult. And that's really what they're trying to foster there is let's build community within our schools. We already have a great community here, so it's building upon that. And really everyone being empowered and educated.
okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah. Are there other districts in Long Island currently using this, and what's their experience with it?
So I did ask for that information. I know off the top of my head, Half Hollow Hills is using it, Plainview Old Bethpage schools using it. They're still using it, so I know that they've had positive experiences. I just don't have details beyond that at this moment.
Anyone else? Questions? No. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you so much for your time. If you have more questions, please reach out and I'll send you more information as well.
Thank you. Okay, I will, sure. Okay, so now we will continue with our first audience to visitors. The Cold Spring Harbor Board of Education and Administration welcome your attendance at board meetings. Audience to public affords residents an opportunity to address the Board of Education on both agenda and non-agenda items. Each resident is allowed to speak for 3 minutes. This is not the forum to discuss student or staff-specific issues. Please contact the district separately on these matters. I've been asked to remind everyone, including board members, to speak into the mic, please. It's for the recording, it's not for the people in the room. So even if we can hear you speaking without a mic, it doesn't get picked up on the recorded meeting. We have 3 people who have signed up to speak. So Jen Kahn.
Alex and Jill, I'm glad that you mentioned how much work was happening this summer because I was going to say that it doesn't seem that you guys have necessarily had much of a summer vacation. I just wanted to first commend all of you on the work done this summer. I'm very impressed with the way you've been juggling various issues and have implemented some concrete results. Thank you, first of all, for being responsive to community concerns, instituting smaller class sizes. I am completely jealous that my kids have aged out of the elementary schools where the class sizes seem like they're going to be fantastic. Thank you for taking so much time and what must be taxing emotional work to handle the Child Victims Act lawsuits in a sensitive way that acknowledges the gravity of the abuse endured by the survivors while mitigating the financial impact on the current district and community. The last big general meeting in July, I thought it was fantastic that you implemented a second, time for the community to speak in case anything else arises and in case any of the board members want to speak. I also want to thank, I know I already emailed you, but I want to thank Lisa, Bill, and Heather for committing to the DEI policy that was unanimously passed several months ago. I think it's a testament to the community that despite disparate concerns, there was a process in which opinions from all corners of the community were solicited and considered. And as a result, we have a policy that's geared toward ethics rather than politics and does not treat civic safety, kindness, and the American ideal of inclusiveness as at odds with rigorous academic performance. And aside from the obvious important ethical benefits, in pragmatic terms, our kids are going to be better prepared for the world beyond the district, where greater diversity is a given. With all of that said, I do want to ask a question following up on a suggestion that was made, I believe, by Tammy Stark at the July 11th meeting. She had suggested that committee meetings be recorded in order to be accessible to the community, just as these general meetings are. Apparently, several other districts on Long Island routinely do this. I will say that every year in recent history, the issue of transparency is a central staple of candidates' campaigns for the Board of Ed. Making committee work available to community members would be consistent with those campaign issues and, frankly, would remove a potent argument from challengers in the next election. Recording committee work may also have the benefit of reducing expensive FOIL requests. So I was hoping to hear whether any more discussion has happened about recording committee meetings, whether that will happen, and if there are concerns about doing so and what those might be. Thank you.
Yeah, so, you want me to answer?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So we haven't had much time to further discuss the recording of meetings. As you've mentioned, we've been quite busy with many other topics. But some research has gone into doing some recordings, and while some committee meetings could possibly be recorded, for example, the audit committee, there might be components of the audit committee that could not be recorded. So we still have some homework to do in that area. But again, that would be a board decision to determine if they want to record some of the ones that would be allowable. But I'm sorry we haven't had much discussion on that topic since.
Next, Mary Redden.
Hi, how are you? So I'm just going to, Jen kind of stole my thunder. I was going to ask again for transparency in the recordings being, made public and uploaded to the website. I think that's extremely important it fosters governance, trust, accountability, and community engagement. And that's just as Jen was saying, the board, a lot of members ran on that. So I think that that's super important. I know in our district, again, Half Isle Hills, everything is recorded and uploaded to the website, committee meetings as well as board meetings, so that everyone who can't be there, they're able to access that information. I was really happy to see the presentation about social and emotional learning. I was just going to talk a little bit about that, how important it is and to our students and even our teachers. Obviously, we all know about enhancing self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills. We do in Half Hollow use Sandy Hook Promise, very positive results on that. And second step I've heard of, so I'm actually happy to hear that you're adopting that as well. So Great Body Shop, again, thank you for continuing with this. Because, obviously in these times, the mental health of all of our students is of utmost importance. And yeah, that's about it. You answered a lot of my questions with your presentations early on, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Olga Burwood?
Hi, thanks for all the hard work that went into these presentations, which were incredible. I'd like to echo the prior two speakers and say that I would throw my full support for mental health awareness among education in the schools. I think that's sorely needed and could potentially be incredibly helpful to many of our students and staff, and parents as well. I just wanted to reiterate what I had brought up at the last public meeting about concerns over language that's being used among many of the students in the school. Actually, interestingly, since I spoke at the last meeting, my children have continued to talk to me and provide examples of situations in which they were aware that harmful language was being used against students based on gender, based on sexual orientation, based on race, ethnicity. So I would just like to reiterate that I feel it's really important to provide more education to the kids in the school about what is and is not appropriate language to use with respect to, people's racial identification, ethnic identification, gender identification, sexual orientation, et cetera. Promote a more inclusive environment, which it sounds like this mental health curriculum will do, and I'm really happy about that. And also just to say that educating students and staff on the sort of DASA requirements, I think that would be incredibly helpful. I think if my kids were a bit more aware that that resource was available to them, they may have used it at some point or other. I also was not aware of it until very recently, only because of my own research. So just being, providing the community with some more resources on, where the school stands on children's behavior in school and outside of school on school grounds, and what the consequences of this behavior, of improper behavior with respect to, with respecting other fellow students. I just think that it would be very helpful for people to have some concrete examples of how the school manages these kinds of situations and what the consequences are for students who both, perpetrate these types of acts, but also are victims of
Olga,
such
that was
acts.
the 3-minute ring.
Okay,
so
that's all I have to say, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you want
Say
to
anything?
respond?
Yeah, so certainly I can ask the principals to share some of this information because it did come up about the DASA reporting in the past. And last year, or when maybe it's 2 years ago now, time's flying by, we did actually create a DASA form that's available up on the website. But again, I really don't think that's the first avenue, just to fill out the form. So again, we want to have that communication with our administrators and teachers and, have children become comfortable going to report to someone. And really, that is really the premise behind the Sandy Hook Promise. I would really prefer that kids are not using an app, but, touching base with an adult in the building. It really also, we've done some work with our with our teachers and staff, working with Tom Murray's work and building relationships. So that was really our theme last year. We had a keynote speaker, but we really wanted to make those connections with kids. And again, we're going to continue that work. In some of the buildings, we actually did some book clubs along those lines, I think. But one of the most important things to take away from the Sandy Hook Promise is really that student-led group. And so empowering kids to use their voices, Students Against Destructive Decisions, and those kind of organization. We have the Natural Helpers Clubs, some of that's at the elementary level as well. So we're not just talking at the secondary building. So that's really important to have those kind of conversations. And, all of our SEL work from, from Goose Hill on up. I know that Mrs. Massimo and Dr. Barnes are working with a portion of the Sandy Hook Promise that they're going to roll out to some families start with hello, and just really starting to build that community and connection as we start and kick off the school year. And really the premise around that is making sure that students, have somebody, if somebody sees a child sitting by themselves in the cafeteria, go up and just say hi, just some basic steps, and empowering kids to really include others.
I would think too, the work that Mike was talking about doing with the PE staff and giving kids common language gives them somebody to talk to also, right? And also somebody to
I think our
help guide them, right?
sometimes take for granted the phys ed teachers, like Mike said, it's not about the athletic program. They're really building those relationships. They're, seeing the child that's selected last in an activity or a group. And then, one other thing I want to actually take a look at going forward is just our recess periods and things like that, and even trying to get some teachers. It would really be a scheduling piece, but it was a game changer in a prior district. We actually had PE teachers. It was one of their assignments. So it's one of their teaching periods out on the field at lunchtime, and they would organize games, some of the similar things, but really taking notice of kids who might be left out, or helping those kids use that language to include others. So it's something that we could talk about in the future, but those are just some alternative ways. But PE teachers have a lot to offer, and they really have contributed greatly. So again, thank you for your comments, and we really appreciate it. And then I know our administrators come to these meetings, and it's really important that they hear the community's comments and concerns.
Okay. Mr. Carpin.
My name is Daniel Carpin. I reside at 3 Harbor Hill Drive. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I was called in to make a presentation about Greta Thunberg and global warming. I was told I was going to, beforehand, I would have a full hour, but they only allowed me 45 minutes. I tried to hook up to the BBC interview with her on September 7th, 2018. It's only 3 weeks into her school strike, and she's on the International British Broadcasting Corporation program being interviewed. Unfortunately, the school's computer system does not allow me access to the September 7th BBC interview with Greta Thunberg in front of the Swedish Parliament building. So I was unable to present that material. I don't know why I couldn't get in, but apparently I can get in on my computer. Any place I go to the library, I can get in. My wife's computer could not get through. It's probably her first international, being international in terms of being picked up not just by the Swedish or German or Swedish or Norwegian television and radio stations and the press, but internationally as well. Couldn't get in there. There were 8 students in the class, and at the end, one of them said, "This is a real eye-opener." The school's curriculum with regard to climate change is basically what I saw a year ago is totally worthless. All it talks about is weather, and climate change is more than just weather. So you got a lot of work to do. Any comments from anybody?
Nope, just Mr. Carpin, I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to come to speak with our students, whether it was 8 students or more. I know that there were some takeaways from our students, and again, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with them.
You've got an enormous amount of work to do. As I see it, the entire curriculum from kindergarten through high school needs a total revamping from one end to the other. I know New Jersey has standards on climate change education. New York does not. You have a lot of work to do.
Okay, thank you. We'll
Thank
take that
you.
under advisement.
You need to take that under advisement. Taking it under advisement is like almost an insult to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we will now move on to the approval of minutes. July 11th, 2023. Christine, you usually do this. Do you want this back?
I can help.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, here you go.
I don't want to take your lines. Here you go. I've got the other one.
You're going to take the July 11th meeting. There were 2 meetings really there that day, reorganizational and the regular meeting. And Alex, you may want to abstain from that vote.
Okay. So July 11th, may I have a first? Tammy, second. Heather, all in favor?
Great.
Thank you.
July 21st, Lisa and Bruce, you may want to abstain.
First, for July 21st, Tammy, second. Heather, all in favor?
July 31st, Heather and Bill, you may want to abstain.
May I have a first? Lisa, second. Bruce, all in favor?
And then we have August 3rd. Kate is not here, so Heather and Bill, you may want to abstain.
August 3rd, may I have a first? Lisa, second. Tammy, all in favor?
Great. And then you can take August 7th and 8th together. Everybody was here.
Oh, great. August 7th and 8th, may I have a first? Bill, second. Heather, all in favor?
Great.
Thank you. We will now move on to personnel recommendations of the superintendent. We will take all appointments on pages 1 through 16 as a slate. We will also, do you want to do this part?
Let's start with that first. I
Okay.
just do want to recognize that in some of these appointments, we have some of our new staff members in the audience tonight. Thank you so much for coming out to join us. Thank you for joining the Cold Spring Harbor team. I see some smiling faces. This is really exciting, so welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Sure. Mrs. Heck, do you want to introduce who's here tonight?
Yes, I'm thrilled. We've had a lot of wonderful staff members and faculty members to welcome over the summer, and this is the crew bringing in the end. So we have Jamie Hastings, who will be at West Side School. Welcome. Michelle Indrieri at Lloyd Harbor School. Donna Zarabi, our part-time music teacher at the elementary level. Nicole Madden, speech teacher at the elementary level. Jenna Shapiro, covering for a teacher on maternity leave and then staying through the year. And then Angela Genova at Lloyd Harbor School. Welcome. We're thrilled you're all here. We're very excited.
I do want to just add that with all these candidates, we had over 600 applications for the elementary positions. So congratulations to come through such a rigorous process. And when I tell you, every application was reviewed. So you clearly stand out. And they went through a very rigorous process, committee meetings. So congratulations again.
Great, and with that said, we need to approve it. Yes. Yeah.
Can we have a
Yeah.
first?
Yeah, right,
Yes.
shouldn't say that,
So,
Bob, yeah.
yes, yeah. So may I have a first? Heather, second. Bruce, All in favor? Congratulations. We will also take 2 walk-on resignations.
Yeah, so this evening, I'm sad to report that Ms. Denise Longano, who was appointed as one of our school counselors, has already resigned from the position. And while she saw this as a great opportunity, this was a financial decision, and obviously sent her regrets working with such a strong team. And then the next person who is a walk-on resignation this evening is Ms. Karen Moser, our Director of Humanities, who's here tonight. Karen, I want to thank you for your service to the Cold Spring Harbor School District. I know this is bittersweet for you, but we want to wish you well in your new position in your home district of Pat Med, where you'll be serving as, I'm going to make sure I get this right, I know it's a long title, but you are going to oversee elementary reading, their UPK program, and homeschool instruction. So again, Karen, thank you again for your service, but we're happy for you that it's a very quick commute compared to the ride to Patchogue from here. So again, congratulations.
Great. So may I have a first? Bill? Second? Tammy? Any questions?
Yeah, I just want to, reiterate again, when we talked about the the departure of the guidance counselor, that obviously it would be great to get someone going quickly. I mean, I know it just happened today, but, maybe in the next meeting, we can talk about the plan if we can't get someone
Tammy,
quickly, right?
talking to your mic.
Sorry. Maybe we can talk about the plan if we can't get someone quickly, right, for that spot. Yes.
Right, so that brings me to another point. So for these positions, which would be obviously the counselor position and our Director of Humanities, and in a previous meeting, we talked about the instructional coordinator position at the elementary level, K through 6. We're going to have to come up with a plan. The positions will be posted immediately, so I really appreciate the board accepting these resignations as a walk-on, and then we'll make determinations. So at this point in time, we're going to look for an AIS coordinator position, which is in the teacher line, which is basically a teacher on special assignment, similar to we had last year. So again, Director of Humanities, we're going to do our very best. This is a difficult time of year to fill the positions, but I'm confident that Cold Spring Harbor is a great place to work, and we'll make it work.
Great, thank you. So all in favor?
Great.
Thank you. All right, we will next take all rescinds and revisions on pages 17 and 18 as a slate. So is there any comment on this before we? Oh, item 17.
No,
No, pages 17 and 18.
17 and 18, right.
Yep. All right, may I have a first? Second, Lisa, first. Second, Bruce, any questions? All right, all in favor?
Alex, I just asked you to go back to the resignations and can we just repeat that it's all resignations plus the 2 walk-ons? We're not sure if you said all resignations.
Okay,
And since it's
let's
being
do it
taped,
again.
let's make
All
sure.
resignations and 2 walk-ons.
And
Can
it
I
was
have a,
Bill and Tammy who.
okay,
Yes.
great, thank you. Bill, still okay with it? Tammy, all in favor? Thank
Great,
you.
Thank you.
We will now move to the required public hearing for the district-wide safety plan. Mr. Anthony Clements, Director of Facilities, will give an overview of the plan. This is an opportunity for the public to come up and speak
Yep.
briefly on specifically on the plan, safety plan. Later in the meeting, the Board of Education will adopt the district-level safety plan.
So you need a motion to open up the public hearing right
Okay,
now.
so I need a motion to open the public hearing on the district-wide safety plan. First is Tammy, second Heather. All in favor? Thank you.
So, Mr. Clements, can you just provide a brief overview? I know this plan has been presented at a prior meeting, so this is the second portion of the public hearing.
Okay. So for a brief overview, the district-wide safety plan, which is a requirement of the New York State Department of Education. Sorry.
Make sure you're using the
Okay.
mic.
Just pull-
We,
Anthony, can you just pull it up a little? Yeah,
which one? Better?
yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're required as a school district to put this out as a public hearing, which is what we're doing here tonight. The district-wide plan is inclusive of all of our buildings in the district, and it works in conjunction with and also as a guide to building the building level plans or building-specific plans. The district-wide plan is a posted document, goes on our website. It's available for public viewing, where the building plans are more specific to the buildings and contain more sensitive and specific information, so they are not posted. They're kept confidential. The plan is, of course, a living document, which means that we have to update it because it can and will change. And one such update will be a remote learning plan will be coming, I believe, at the next meeting or in September.
Yeah, so a new requirement is that the district has a remote learning plan as part of the district safety plan. And we hope we never have to use it, but again, it's a new state requirement as part of the district safety plan. So we need to develop that plan, and then we'll come back and revisit this at another meeting. And then, again, it'll have to go through a public hearing phase, so it'll be really about a 60-day turnaround to make those edits. There may be other changes because our district-wide safety team may meet and make some suggestions and things along those lines. So again, we can make those edits. There's certain personnel within the district safety plan that need to be designated to take on certain responsibilities and things along those lines. So again, the plan will evolve throughout the year.
And you're voting tonight, so we meet the September 1st deadline to post the plan to SED, and then it can be revised after that, during the year. But that is why it's being voted on tonight.
Do we need to ask if anyone wants to
Yes.
speak?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is a public opportunity for anyone to come up and speak specifically on the safety plan. Is there anyone who would like to come up and say anything?
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so at this time,
You're moving on to business recommendations.
we're moving on to business recommendations. We're going to move on to business recommendations. So we will take a look at budget transfers on page 18 as a slate. May I have a first? Bruce, second. Heather, any questions? Make sure I don't have any questions. All right, making sure I didn't have any questions. All in favor?
Great.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, and now we will take the claims auditor's report on page 18 as a slate. May I have a first? Lisa, second. Heather, all in favor? Thank you. We move now to additional business items on pages 18 to 21 as a slate. And we will also take a walk-on permit with SUNY Old Westbury for our varsity swim team to swim at their pool next week. The season commences August 28th, and the team needs a swim location.
Yeah, so this is, again, we learned of this change today. So typically, the students for the swim team for a week span meet at one of the local beach clubs. They could not accommodate it, so we had to make some quick adjustments to be able to accommodate the students in this interim process, and we were fortunate to be able to obtain this pool.
Great, thank you. May I have first? Heather, second. Bill? Any questions?
I just wanted to ask if someone could describe the varsity media contract. I know we were given a description, but it would be nice for the public to hear what
Sure.
we're planning to do
No problem. I'm going to
for
ask
our
Christine.
athletic teams, which
We
is
would like
very
to hear directly
exciting.
from Mike Bongino. He's actually here.
Sure,
Yeah,
can you hear
let's
from
hear
Mike?
it from Mike.
Mike, do you want to come and sell it?
Nothing like putting you on the spot, Mike.
Sorry, Mike.
No, I
Usually
know he can answer
handle it.
this question.
So, through last year,
God bless you.
we're looking to enhance the number of teams and programs that actually will be filmed for various reasons. Coaches, scouting, ways to improve, as well as to live stream multiple sports that have not. So our junior high student athletes, our JV athletes will have this opportunity in locations, as well as keeping the varsity media contract, which will be able to film our sport teams that do not compete on site. So the NFHS contract has to do with the Wi-Fi access to certain field locations, which I will schedule multiple teams playing on, which will not be a problem. So in like the field house, for example, I can't imagine anyone saw a junior high basketball game filmed before. Now you will. The JV games, now you will. And keeping with varsity media, which also uploads to our Huddle account, which allows our teams to break games down. That's more for the varsity level to make sure that they're prepared for their opponents and so on and so forth. And also our students can watch these things and see how they performed in their previous game. We're going to be able to go off-site and film our swim team, golf team, hockey team, and all of the programs, crew team, that do not compete on site. So I appreciate and thank the board very much for the acceptance of both. And this is only going to enhance the exposure of our student athletes across the district.
Yeah, really exciting.
Varsity Media is a subscription service, right? Like you have to
Not
pay to
for-
watch it?
You won't be varsity, when it's up on varsity media, it's going to be, has to be uploaded to their Huddle account. That is not anything anyone has to pay for. Every team has a Huddle account in Cold Spring Harbor. That's a contract that we have had for years.
So if you know, someone wants to watch like the varsity lacrosse team play, you know, wherever,
So you would watch that now on the NFHS network, which is a subscription. It's like $10.99 for the year, like every school district.
And that's the
pretty much
Play
in the
On
nation has.
Pixel Lock contract that you're seeing on here. He's calling it NHSS, but it's.
Wait, so Lisa,
Oh,
you're asking.
Pixelon.
is there a
Is there-
free
is
way
there
to
a-
watch it?
Right. Is there a fee to families to watch it?
Well, yes, it's a $10.99 subscription for the entire year. Like I have it, I have to pay for it, like for everything. It's just the way it works.
Will you let us use your password?
Sure. Maybe not all at the same time, because then I won't be able to see something, but.
Mr. Monastero,
it
sit
is-
down.
It's, it'll be a much more enhanced way for everyone to watch the games.
Okay, thank
Very
you.
exciting.
That's a good question, Lisa. Thanks for clarifying that.
And for number 5 here on page 19, we talked about this transfer to the teacher's retirement system. That's not to exceed that number, right? That's not the actual number.
That's correct. We're still
Okay.
closing the financial books from 2022-23. So that is an up to, not to exceed number.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, all in favor?
Great.
We will move to special education reports. We will take contracts and CSE approvals on page 21 as a slate. May I have a first? Lisa? Second? Heather? All in favor? We will now move on to other matters. We will take items 1 through 4 as a slate on pages 21 and 22. These items include tick and weed control, overnight field trips, and the adoption of the Second Step and Sandy Hook programs discussed earlier tonight. May I have a first? Tammy. May I have a second? Bill. Any questions? All in favor?
Great.
The agenda includes financial reports on page 22, and these reports are for informational purposes. No vote is necessary. If needed, Mrs. Costa will answer any questions from the Board of Education and public. Feel free to call her in her office.
Call me. Call me.
Give her a call. We now continue with our second audience to visitors. Is there anyone who would like to come up and speak? Yes.
Hello, my name's Anthony Palano. I was on this board for 20 years, from 2000 to 2020. What I wanted to ask is, it's still customary, I think, by the state that the board visits every building during the summer? I don't know, is that something?
Yes,
That-
so we have a board walkthrough scheduled for next Monday.
Okay,
For
because
the-
what I wanted to suggest, and it's just a suggestion, and I know this could be difficult, because I know there's a lot of new board members on the board. One time, we actually did it not on a Saturday, we actually did it during the school day. And I have to say, the impact was tremendous. Literally, I think we went to like Goose Hill for like 20 minutes, and then we drove to West Side, then we drove to Lloyd Harbor. If it's something that could ever fit in the schedule, it doesn't, I know people are working, so it's a difficult, idea to do. But it had an impact on the teachers, it had an impact on the students. We got calls from parents saying, the whole board was, Mr. So-and-so and Mrs. So-and-so were in the school. So I just think if it's something you possibly could fit in your schedules, it's a
We
great.
did it last year. It was
Oh, you
wonderful.
did?
We did it in the spring, and it was fantastic.
Okay.
You were right. It
All
was
right.
so much fun
All right,
to
good.
be
I'm
in the
glad you did.
buildings and see everyone, and it was wonderful. So I hope that will continue this
Yeah,
spring.
So, we do our, when I mentioned our Board of Ed walkthrough, so they certified the buildings in terms of all the facilities and the construction projects.
Great.
And it's a mad dash to the finish. And then again, so we didn't even know you had it before, but we implemented it
Oh,
this
great.
past spring. And I do agree with you 100%. And I'm sure the board who was able to walk through, to be able to see the students and interact with teachers and really just see such a vibrant learning community. It was a great day. I mean, it was so exciting, and the teachers were just really pleased, like you
Okay.
said, to see the board walking
That's
through
great.
the
And
buildings.
thank you for all your time and effort, because I know it's, we see only about 10% of your time at this point. I know what goes on. So all that extra time, I appreciate all your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
This is the discussion section of our agenda. Does any board member have an item for discussion? Bill Woolman.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to give a readout from the audit committee meeting that we had on August 22nd. What? Oh, hold on.
If you've ever listened to the meeting or watched the meeting, it's distinct if people aren't talking into the mic, so.
Yeah, I'm not used to this. People usually don't have a problem hearing me, so. So anyway, the audit committee met on August 9th at 9 a.m. here in the boardroom. There are 3 board members who comprise the audit committee, Ms. Stark, Ms. Wheelhan, and myself. We were joined by Superintendent Girash and Assistant Superintendent Costa. And the meeting was called to discuss the New York State Controller's audit of our district's capital assets. The Office of the Controller conducts audits of schools on a 5-year cycle. So this was recently completed and fell within the routine 5-year cycle. So that was pretty routine. We had as a committee to make a couple of decisions. So first, we had to respond to the draft findings that the school was given relating to the audit. Since they're draft, they're still confidential, but we had to decide how to respond. So we agreed to provide an acknowledgement to the state that we had received the report without providing any detailed response at this point. The second thing, we had to discuss whether we wanted an exit conference from the auditors, and we declined that. We understood the report. So at that meeting, we finalized the report, which was due by August 17th. And so Alex signed it on behalf of the committee, and it was sent in. At a future point, detailed corrective action will be considered relating to the audit. and then referred to the full board for consideration. So just wanted to share that with everyone.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's any questions, but.
Any questions? Is there anything else anyone has up for discussion this evening?
I just do want to respond. So at our last meeting, one of our community members asked about insurance coverage for our CVA cases, and at that time, I could not provide an answer. And I am still, I want to say that we do have some coverage, but I'm not privy to say how much at this time. But we do plan on sharing as much information as we can at the September 18th meeting with our community when we discuss the payment plans at that point in time. So.
Thank you. All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Tammy, second. Lisa, all in favor? That concludes our meeting. Thank you, everyone.